It always begins the same way. You meet someone, you feel seen, or at least you think you do. There's a spark in her eyes. Maybe hope, maybe hunger, maybe both. You think it's about you, but it isn't. She's not seeing you, she's scanning you, measuring, testing, aligning you against something invisible, something she's been rehearsing since childhood. You're not being loved. You're being cast. She doesn't love your reality. She loves the version she imagines you might become, the upgraded version, the polished version, the man-shaped idea she carries in her unconscious. The perfect partner, the savior, the puzzle piece. But here's the tragedy. That man is not you. And no matter how much effort you put into becoming him, you will fail. Because he's not real. He's a role. A shadow stitched together by fantasy and fear. And when you no longer fit the costume, she won't adjust the story. She'll replace the actor. It feels like betrayal. But how can it be betrayal if you were never truly known to begin with? You start asking yourself, what did I do wrong? Why wasn't I enough? Why did she change? But the truth, she didn't change. She just ran out of illusion. And you ran out of performance. This isn't about blame. This is about pattern. A pattern so old, so deeply ingrained, that most men never even question it. You're taught to perform, to prove, to pursue. From the time you're a boy, you're told that being chosen by a woman is the ultimate confirmation of your worth, and so you become an actor in your own life. You learn your lines. You smile when expected. You agree when convenient. You bury the parts of yourself that don't fit the part. And every time the show ends, every time the lights go out and the applause fades, you feel more hollow than before, more lost, more unsure of who you actually are when no one's watching. Because here's the invisible script you were never handed. You don't become a man by being chosen. You become a man by choosing yourself. And if that line stings, good. It's supposed to. Because the most dangerous thing about projection isn't that she sees you wrong. It's that you start seeing yourself through her eyes. You internalize the role. You believe the illusion. And then when it collapses, you think you're the failure. But you're not. You're just not him. And you never were. The man who awakens to this truth doesn't become cold. He becomes real. And realness terrifies people because it can't be controlled, can't be predicted, can't be scripted. And when you start to live from that place of honesty, of solidity, of unapologetic presence, something radical happens. You stop needing to be chosen. And for the first time, you are finally free. Carl Jung didn't speak in soft tones or comforting affirmations. He didn't offer shallow encouragements wrapped in feel-good slogans. He stared straight into the chaos of the human psyche and came back with warnings. One of his most jarring truths? The animus. It's not just a theory, it's a force, a psychological presence embedded deep inside the feminine unconscious, an inner masculine voice, a blueprint of what a real man should be. And when it's immature, unchecked, or unconscious, it becomes dangerous, to her and to you. You see, when a woman hasn't confronted her animus, she doesn't love you. She loves a projection, a phantom, an echo of an idea she's spent years unknowingly rehearsing. It's why she might say you're different, but treat you the same as the last 5 guys. It's why she might want mystery, but reject honesty. Why she's drawn to chaos, but punishes stability. It's not hypocrisy, it's possession. Jung called it a spiritual possession. A woman acting not from her conscious self, but from the shadowy masculine voice inside her, distorted by fantasy and trauma. She might think she's choosing you, but she's casting. She doesn't want you to lead. She wants the image of a leader. She doesn't want truth. She wants control, disguised as romance. And here's where it gets sinister, because this animus doesn't just whisper in her ear. It speaks with false certainty, false authority, false moral superiority. It can turn disagreement into attack, compassion into weakness, and a man's soul into a battlefield. Many women, especially in modern culture, are never told this animus exists. Instead, they're told, you're intuitive, you're nurturing, you're complete just as you are. But Jung didn't buy that. He said the most dangerous women aren't evil. They're unaware that the voice in their head isn't theirs, that their desire for control masquerades as love, that their moral indignation is often just projection in disguise. And men, we walk into this trap blindfolded, because nobody taught us to see it. You think her passion means truth, her intensity means connection, her chaos means depth. But often it's just the animus, wearing the mask of romance. This is why you feel crazy after a breakup, why you feel like you failed some test you never signed up for. Because you weren't dating her. You were dating her in a fantasy of a man. And when you didn't perform the role, the story collapsed. She changed the actor, not the script. And you blamed yourself. But listen closely now. This isn't about demonizing women. It's about waking up. Because once you understand the animus, once you see the projection for what it is, you stop chasing her approval. You stop trying to fit the role, and you begin the one journey she cannot control, the journey inward, toward the man who sees the trap and refuses to play along. You thought it was love, but it was theater. You were handed a script, unspoken, invisible, suffocating, and expected to know your lines. She smiled when you hit the right emotional beats, laughed at the perfect moments, clapped when you played the part. But if you ever strayed, if you ever improvised, the mood changed. Silence, tension, coldness. Suddenly you were different, distant. Not the man she fell in love with. But here's the truth she never told you. She didn't fall in love with you. She fell in love with the character she imagined you to be. The romantic lead, the emotionally available yet mysterious gentleman. The masculine provider who somehow never says no. Strong but sensitive. Bold but compliant. Unreal. Unhuman. You were cast in a play called Her Fantasy Life, and for a while, you played your part well. But then it happened. You cracked. You got tired. You said no. You dropped the mask, just for a moment, and she looked at you like a stranger, because without the role, you were unrecognizable. And that's when it hit you. This wasn't love. This was performance. You were not in a relationship. You were in a psychological production. She was the director, the screenwriter, the critic. You were just a cast member. And like all cast members, you were replaceable. This is why breakups can feel like identity collapse. It's not just heartbreak, it's role loss. You don't just lose her, you lose the version of yourself she made you believe you were. And here's where it gets darker. The more you played the part, the more you forgot who you actually were. It's why you stay in relationships long after the joy has died. You're not in love. You're addicted to being the character. You're afraid that without the applause, you'll disappear. But hear me, you are not a puppet. You are not a mask. You are not a role. And if love demands you to shrink, to silence, to pretend, it isn't love. It's manipulation. Real love doesn't script you. It sees you. And the first step to being truly seen is walking off the stage. You might lose her. You might lose the spotlight. You might stand in silence. But in that silence, your real voice returns. And once it does, no woman's fantasy will ever imprison you again. From the moment you were a boy, you were taught the rules. Be agreeable. Be helpful. Be nice. Make her happy. Don't be too much. Don't make her uncomfortable. Don't ever, ever let her feel disappointed in you. And so you learned to smile when you didn't want to say yes when everything in you screamed no, to shrink yourself into the most acceptable, non-threatening version possible. You thought it was love, but it was survival. You needed approval, desperately, not just from her, but from every woman, your mother, your teachers, your first crush. your ex. And every time you got a nod, a smile, a good boy, you felt safe, valuable, worthy. That's how it starts. And that's how the addiction begins. You don't even realize it. You think you're being a good man. You think you're being respectful, supportive, emotionally mature. But what you're really doing is performing. You've become a master at adapting, at predicting what she wants to hear, at avoiding conflict, at playing the role that keeps her around. And sure, it works, for a while. But something dark happens underneath. You start disappearing, piece by piece, word by word, boundary by boundary. Until one day, you realize you don't recognize yourself. Not because you changed, but because you've been edited. You're not living, you're managing. You're managing her emotions, her expectations, her approval, and you call it love. But love doesn't demand a mask. Here's the painful truth. As long as you seek approval, you are not free. You are owned. Not by her, but by your own fear of being unloved. You think being agreeable will make her stay, but over time, it makes you invisible. Predictability breeds resentment. Neediness breeds rejection. Why? Because the very thing you use to win her, your performance, is the thing that makes her lose respect for you. Real women don't want obedience. They want presence. Real men don't mold themselves for love. They show up fully and let love find them there. The addiction to approval is the silent killer of masculinity. It's what makes you question your worth every time she pulls away. It's what keeps you stuck in relationships that drain you. It's what convinces you that if you just try a little harder, she'll finally see you. But listen closely. If she only stays when you're performing, then she's not in love with you. She's in love with the act. And you're not loving her either. You're using her to feel enough. The cure? Brutal honesty. With yourself, with her, with the world. You don't need to be perfect to be loved. You need to be real. Even if that means standing alone. Even if that means losing people who only loved the character you played. Because the only love worth having is the kind that loves the man, not the mask. There comes a point in every man's life when he realizes no one is coming to save him. Not his parents, not the woman he loves, not the mentors he admires. No one. And in that moment, a fork appears. One path is well lit, familiar. It's the path of fitting in, following scripts, chasing comfort. It's where most men stay. They marry approval. They inherit roles. They live quietly resentful lives, smiling on the outside, crumbling on the inside. The other path? It's darker, quieter, full of echoes and mirrors. That's the path of individuation. Jung didn't romanticize it. He didn't call it personal growth. He called it what it is, a death. A slow, painful death of everything false. The nice guy, the people pleaser, the man who needs to be liked, the man who needs to be chosen. All of them must die. Individuation is not about becoming a better version of who she wants you to be. It's about becoming you. Unapologetically, unfiltered, unpolished. It starts in silence, in solitude, in the terrifying space where there's no script to follow, only questions. Who am I without her? What do I believe when no one's watching? What am I running from? And the answers, they won't come with ease. They'll come through grief, through broken illusions, through long nights where you want to run back to comfort, but don't. Because comfort is where your true self goes to die. You'll face your shadow, the weak parts, the insecure, the ashamed, the parts you denied to stay lovable. You'll rage, you'll weep, you'll want to blame, but no one else is there. And that's the point. You finally learn to hold yourself, not perform, not prove, just be. And when you rise from that, not with bravado, but with quiet certainty, you become something rare. A man who no longer fears solitude. A man who no longer negotiates his identity for affection. A man who no longer chases, but attracts by being real. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be whole. And wholeness only comes when you stop running. Running from loneliness, running from rejection, running from your own depth. Jung said that individuation is a path not for the faint of heart, because it asks everything of you, and gives you back one thing, your soul. When you meet that man in the mirror, raw, undeniable, untamed, you will finally understand why she was never meant to complete you. Because you were always meant to complete yourself. You did everything right. You were kind. You were available. You listened. You showed up. You were the good guy. And still, she left. And not just left. She seemed almost repelled by your goodness, drawn instead to someone louder, colder, more dangerous. And you're left in pieces, asking the question every man dreads. What did I do wrong? But maybe the better question is, what did I represent? Because here's the cruel paradox. The traits you were told would make you lovable. Obedience, emotional availability, predictability, are often the very things that erode attraction. Not because they're wrong, but because they feel safe. Too safe. And the unconscious feminine isn't looking for safety. It's looking for spark, for mystery, for presence, for strength that cannot be molded. So when you give everything, when you sacrifice your edge to be agreeable, when you say yes, when you mean no, when you flatten your boundaries to prove you're good, you become invisible. Not because you're not valuable, but because you're not seen anymore. You're managed. You're known too well. And familiarity without depth breeds rejection. She doesn't leave you because you're bad. She leaves you because you stopped being a mirror. In the early days, you reflected her fantasy. You played the part. But over time, your true self showed up, timid, fearful, needing to be needed. And that shattered the illusion. You weren't her hero anymore. You became her echo, her fan, her follower. And deep down, she doesn't want a follower. She wants a partner. But here's the catch. She might not even realize this. She might believe she wants the nice guy. She might say she's tired of toxic men. And maybe she is. But until she confronts her animus, that inner masculine projection, she will keep chasing chaos and pushing away peace. And you, my brother, will keep thinking it's your fault. But it's not. You didn't fail because you were good. You failed because you performed. You gave your version of good, not your truth. You sought love by being digestible, palatable, pleasant. But real men don't seduce with smoothness. They attract with depth. So if she left, let her. Don't chase. Don't explain. Don't mold yourself to be recast. Because her rejection was a reflection, not of your worth, but of how far you've strayed from your edge. And the man who remembers his edge, the man who stops performing, is the man who will never be abandoned again. Not because no one will leave him, but because he won't leave himself. If you've ever asked, why did she leave when I gave her everything? Comment. I remember my edge. Attraction isn't logical. It's primal, mysterious, unspoken. She'll tell you she wants a kind man, a gentle soul, a good communicator. And maybe she means it. But watch closely. Because what pulls her is something she rarely names. It's the presence. The man who doesn't flinch. The man who doesn't chase. The man who doesn't need her admiration to stand tall. Real attraction isn't about being agreeable. It's about being undeniable. You walk into a room, and she feels something. Not because you said the right things, not because you played the part, but because you didn't. You weren't performing. You were just there, grounded, silent, whole. And that wholeness, it radiates. She doesn't know why she keeps looking at you, why her body leans toward you, why she feels off balance around you. It's not game, it's gravity. Because when you stop needing approval, you become real. And realness is rare, terrifyingly rare. Most men are running from themselves, from their fears, from their shame. But when you stop running, you become still. And in that stillness, there's power. Not loud power, not dominance, but the kind of strength that doesn't move when tested. She respects it, even if she can't explain it. It's why some men say almost nothing and still get her full attention. It's why some men can say no and her interest spikes. It's why mystery always outlives performance. Not because you're withholding, but because you're not performing to be liked. You are rooted in who you are. And from that place, you don't chase. You choose. You don't manipulate. You magnetize. You don't need her to fill a hole inside you. You've already met yourself there. And when you do, you become unforgettable. Not because of your charm, but because of your clarity. That's what she's starving for. Not a savior, not a servant. A man. Whole, awake, unmoved by flattery, and unshaken by rejection. And that, my friend, is what real attraction feels like. Not a high, not a performance, but a mirror. Because when she stands before you, she sees who she could become too. If you've ever felt that shift, when you stopped chasing and she leaned in, comment, "I lead with presence." You'll know her when she arrives. She won't come with fireworks or grand declarations. She won't try to impress. She won't seduce with fantasy, because she's done with illusion. This woman, she's burned. Burned through the lies she told herself, through the projections she cast, through the need to be rescued. She's faced her own shadow, met her own animus, walked through her own psychological fire. She's no longer looking for a role to fill. She's looking for truth, not because she's jaded, but because she's awake. And when she looks at you, it won't be with hunger. It'll be with clarity. She's not scanning you for potential. She's not casting you in her romantic movie. She's simply meeting you as you are. And that moment, it's terrifying, because there's no role to play, no part to earn, no performance to polish, only presence. She won't need you. She'll choose you. And the difference will shake you. She won't demand that you heal her. She won't ask you to complete her. She won't mold you to match her myth. Because she's done the work. She knows the cost of projection. She knows the emptiness of performance. And she's no longer interested in scripts. She'll meet you in the present. Not in the past. Not in the fantasy. Not in the echo of her wounded girl. And when she speaks, her words will land differently. No manipulation. No confusion, just truth. You won't feel high, you'll feel home, because this woman isn't chasing love. She's offering it, and not from a place of lack, but from fullness. She won't idolize you. She'll honor you, not for what you do for her, but for who you are in yourself. And when that moment comes, when she stands before you, not as a goddess to be worshipped, but as a soul willing to walk beside you, you'll know. You'll feel it in your chest, in your breath, in the way your body relaxes instead of performing. This is what all the pain was preparing you for. Not a fantasy, not a savior, but a partner, a mirror, a companion. A woman whose love requires nothing and gives everything. Because she is no longer loving to fill a void. She is loving because she overflowed. If you believe you're ready for this kind of love, not to chase it, but to meet it, comment, "I meet her with truth." You can't carry both, the performance and the truth. One has to die. And for most men, that's the breaking point, because even after the pain, the rejection, the collapse, even after losing themselves in roles and masks, they still cling to what's known, to what once worked, to the version of themselves that got attention, even if it wasn't real. But the truth? That false self isn't keeping you safe. It's keeping you small. You wear it like armor, but it's actually a cage. It's the good guy who never says no, the smooth talker who always has the right line, The strong, silent type who never reveals weakness. The fixer, the savior, the provider. All crafted, all controlled, all fake. And here's the tragedy. You started performing to be loved, but the performance became your identity. So now, even when love comes, you can't receive it. Because you don't believe it's for you, it's for the character. And that character needs to die. Not slowly, not gradually. Burn it. Light a fire to the scripts, to the shoulds, to the polished lines and people-pleasing. Let the mask crack. Let the costume fall. Let the applause fade. Stand naked in your own soul. Ugly, raw, undeniable. And there, in that terrifying stillness, you will find your edge. Not the edge built on arrogance, but the edge forged through truth. This is the death Jung spoke of, the death before death, where the false layers are stripped, not by force, but by fire. And from those ashes, you don't become better. You become real, no longer seduced by fantasy, no longer afraid of silence, no longer needing to be chosen because you've chosen yourself. And that choice? It's the most dangerous thing a man can make, because once you do, you cannot be controlled, you cannot be bought, you cannot be cast. You become untouchable, not in ego, but in essence. And people will feel it. They'll flinch when you speak with honesty. They'll pull back when you hold your boundary. They'll accuse you of being too much because you've stopped being less. You are no longer a projection. You are no longer a placeholder. You are no longer what others need you to be. You are you. And from that place, you're finally ready to love. Not as a mask, not as a fixer, but as a man who burned everything false to become free. If you're ready to let the false self die, comment, "I burn the mask." There's a moment, quiet, unremarkable to the world, but undeniable to you. You feel it in your spine, in your breath, in the way you walk into a room without adjusting yourself to be liked. You've stopped performing, not because you're bitter, but because you're whole. And from that wholeness, something strange begins to happen. People get uncomfortable. Not because you're unkind, but because you're clear. Your very presence confronts them, not with words, but with truth. You've become a mirror, and most people hate mirrors, especially when they reflect the parts they've buried. Some will mock you, call you arrogant, emotionless, unromantic. But you'll know what's really happening. They don't fear you. They fear the truth you represent, because you've stepped off the stage, and they're still clinging to their costumes. And women, they'll feel it first. The ones still dancing with projection won't know what to do with you. You won't flinch when they withdraw. You won't chase when they test. You won't soften your truth to win their comfort. You'll simply be, and that is terrifying, because you no longer fit the role. You no longer agree just to keep the peace. You no longer tolerate manipulation disguised as connection. You're not cold. You're not distant. You're just real, and realness rewrites the rules. You'll attract differently, not the fantasy chasers, not the ones looking for someone to fix, fill, or carry them, but the ones who've also done the work, the ones who aren't looking for a character, but a companion, not a prince, but a partner. She'll stand in front of you not as a test, but as an equal, not to tame you, but to walk beside you. And in that rare meeting, with no roles, no masks, no games, you'll feel what love truly is. Not dependence, not seduction, not validation, but freedom. Freedom to choose, freedom to walk away, freedom to be fully seen and still stand tall. Jung warned us that most men would never make it this far. Because it's lonely, it's brutal. It strips everything you used to believe about love, identity, and self-worth. But if you did make it, if you're still here, still listening, still walking, you've already won. Not because of what you've gained, but because of what you no longer need. You no longer need her to tell you who you are. You no longer need the applause to feel alive. You no longer need to be chosen, to be complete. You have become the man who stands in presence, not to impress, but to embody truth. And that, my friend, is the rarest kind of love, the one that demands nothing and offers everything. If you've made it this far, comment, "I no longer perform, I simply am."